Hi there, and today we're finishing off step 4 of the upscale snack bar. Last week we started the big red door, and this week we've just got to finish off the curved column which sits on the right hand side. So this is where we'd got to at the end of the last video, building the upscaled red door. We've got the main section of the door built, we've just got the curved column on the side to build. And if you missed last week's video or any of the videos building the upscale snack bar, there is a complete playlist on my channel so you can catch up right from the start. But just a quick summary, we've built the main part of the door using a snot technique, so we've got 2 layers of plates with a layer of tiles on the top to give it that nice smooth finish. And I did say at the end of the last video that we do have the option of adding some inverted tiles on the back to give the back of the door a smooth finish. The downside of this is that's going to cost about £20 to £25 to do, because these parts only come in 2x2 and 1x3, and the other downside is it'll give our door an extra layer plate layers of thickness, so it'll go from 3 to 4 plates. So just whether that's in keeping with the actual thickness of the door. So I'm not going to do that on this iteration of the door, but it may be something that I do in the future. I'll also quickly go through the joining technique I'm going to be using between the snot part of the door and the regular studs facing up part of the door on the curved column, which I went through in detail in the last video, but I'll give you a quick summary now. I wanted to make sure that there was absolutely no way the 2 parts of the door could be pulled apart, and using brackets or other techniques like that, they could still be pulled apart. So I tried to use a method using clips and bars which wouldn't be pulled apart, so they could be locked together in some way. The first few methods were just a plain clip and a bar, so that's a bar on a plate and a clip on a brick, and of course, yes, it holds the 2 pieces together in different angles, but it's very easy to pull apart. I then changed the bar piece and increased the number of clips to 2. It made it slightly more difficult to pull apart because we've got a lot more friction, but again, the 2 parts can still physically be parted. And even reversing the technique so that the clip was on the plate side and the bar was on the brick side, it's still the same technique, however, still easy to pull apart. But in using that method, I inadvertently stumbled across the method I was going to use in the final version, and that was I was trying to hide the bottom part of this bar by putting it inside this 1x2 curved plate with a hole in it, so the bottom part of the bar sat inside that the stud of that brick, that plate, and was slightly hidden. And I suddenly thought that means you can lock those bars in place using a plate with an open stud. So this is my first prototype which can't be pulled apart. We've got a brick on the top and the bottom, and a brick in the middle with a bar on it, and then this plate with an open stud sticking out. So we can put that bar inside like that, and those 2 pieces now can't be pulled apart sideways. And if we put a brick on top, that's quite happy. However, the piece underneath, there's not quite enough space for that the round part of this plate, so these 2 bricks are being forced open. I could remove that tile, but that would leave quite a large gap, so I wanted to use the same method, however within Lego's tolerances, so these 2 bricks wouldn't be being forced apart like they are. And that's when I finished up with this solution. We've got our plate with a bar on this side like that, a brick with a clip holding it in place, and then on top of that we're just putting a brick and a plate, so that bar is now sticking up inside that plate, but more importantly the bottom half of the bar is sitting inside that round plate at the bottom, and those 2 pieces now physically can't be pulled apart, so it's going to give us our strongest connection between the flat part of the door and the curved part of the pillar. So as you can see, sticking out the side of the door, we've got 6 of those bar pieces, so that means we've got 6 connection points on the lower part of the door. I did want to add another one up here, however there wasn't physically enough space to cram in the same technique before we had to get on to more complicated issues of trying to join it to the open stud at the top of the door. So replicating this build all in red, we've got our bricks with our clips on it, and we're going to put a plate underneath that, and then that obviously clips onto our bar, and then that all important open stud round plate underneath. And I've actually used the same piece to go on top to hold that in place, and you can see that is our very firm connection point. Now they physically can't be pulled apart, however I can't just make these and then clip them on, because obviously, like I said, you can't clip them on and off. It has to physically be built onto the door, so we have to remove all these pieces, clip that onto there, put the plate underneath like that, and another one on top. And then there's just enough space for a 1x2 brick, and then we start the whole thing again. So I've built a second one of those constructions on the bar just above, and you can see there is actually a slight gap between, and that is enough for a plate to go in there. So I could put a 1x2 plate or 1x2 round plate again. However, we have still got to join these to our curved pillar to the side of it. Now, because the curve on the door is effectively the round of a 1x1 round brick, we know at 6:1 scale that should be 6x6. So going from the front, turning 90 degrees, we're going to be using lots and lots of these 3x3 curved bricks. So my next problem was obviously how we're going to join this column of curved bricks to our mechanisms to hold onto the door. And the obvious answer is to add in there a 1x3 plate. So we've got two studs sitting on top of the brick, and then the third one sitting on top of the curved brick. However, I didn't like that we'd then have a corner sticking out on this nice smooth curve. So I thought, let's get the curved plate that we've got above, but in the 1x3 version instead of the 1x2 version. And building that in Bricklink Studio was easy. I checked that this piece came in red, and sure enough it did. And if we temporarily disassemble this for a moment, take that piece off and take this piece off, and we put our 1x3 plate, our 1x3 curved plate between the two of them like that, put the other one on top, and those two can go back in the door. We can cover them up with our tiles, and we've finally got a connection point that we can then attach our curved bricks to. And so I was really pleased with this design, not using a square 1x3 plate, and we gave us our nice smooth curve because of the geometry of plates being used here. I could stick two more bricks underneath, and by adding a 1x1 round plate on the other end of the brick, I could then add some above as well, like that, and you can see we've got the start of our nice curve. But I hit a major problem with this piece. This piece has only come out in red in 2026, and it's currently only available in 6 sets. There's one in the ginormous Minas Tirith set, there's 21 in the new road bike set, there's 2 in the X1 Ninja Charger set, there's 2 in the Jaguar F-Type Project 7 and Land Rover Defender Classic set, and there's 2 in the Jurassic World Mosasaurus Dinosaur Boat Attack set, all of which are incredibly new sets, and hardly anyone is selling these on Bricklink. Just to give you some idea, if you want these in black, currently worldwide there's 3,957 people on Bricklink selling these. However, if you want them in red, there's only 81 people worldwide selling them. But then when you look at the UK only, there's only 5 people in my country selling these. The cheapest is £1.48, but that seller's only got 2. Then as we go up, we get to £1.60, only 1, £1.98, still only 2, £2.56, only 2, and then one seller has got a huge amount of them for sale, but they are £4.99 each, and I need 6 of them. So I just really wanted you to know how committed I now am to this build. I needed 6 of these pieces, and I could have bought them 2 each from 3 different sellers. However, that would have multiplied up on the postage, so I bought 6 of these for £4.99 each. So nearly £30 just to make the curve on the door look slightly nicer. So I'm going to build the other 4 of these in speed build, and then we're going to try and lock them in place using with the top stud and the bottom anti-stud, but we're going to strip off some of these tiles so we can build the column and then just click it into place. So that is the full build of all 6 of the clip and bar connection pieces. And having built it in physical bricks, I think the weakest part of it is over here where we've got that single stud. However, hopefully most of this is going to try to keep the whole thing in compression where these plates are. So I'm hoping that this will be fairly sturdy and sturdy enough to rotate on its anti-stud at the bottom and the regular stud at the top. So we just need to connect this back onto the door where all those plates came from originally, and then cover them all back up with tiles. They click nicely into place, and then cover them up with tiles. As you can see, like I said, that one stud is the weakest connection point. There's nothing holding them in up there. Let's put all these tiles back on. And hopefully we've got a fairly good start of the curved side of the door. Now, just taking those tiles off, I did also notice that this corner flexes quite a lot. I did make it so that this 4x12 was dropped down by 2 plates to try and hold on to that. I obviously couldn't do it with this one because we only had a 3 stud wide plate at the bottom, so I couldn't drop that 4x12 down onto this bottom row of 2 studs, but it does mean that this corner is quite flexible. But I'm hoping in the next bit, when I join the anti-stud together, we've got another connection point going on here, and hopefully that'll firm that up and it'll be a lot more substantial. But having just said that, I thought actually I can easily fix that right now. I don't need to wait till the other piece is fitted onto the bottom. If I just remove those bottom 2 rows of tiles back to here, and then I replace those 4s at the top with 6s like that, get a spare 6 that we didn't have before, and use one of the 2x4s and point it downwards. That instantly holds those 2 rows together, and then we just need to fill in the gap on the corner with a 2x2, and that now doesn't move at all. And so onto the anti-stud that is going to go on the bottom of the door, and as we know, it's got to sit on an upscaled stud, which is a 4x4 brick on the green base plate. So we're going to use more of those 3x3 curved bricks to go around the outside of it. And so our first layer, like I said, it's going to have 2 right-angled corners and 2 curved corners. So we've got 2 curved bricks, got 2 1x2s, and 2 1x3s, which will give us our shape of an anti-stud with 2 curved corners and 2 square corners. And then on top of that, we're going to start to hold those pieces together. Now, ideally, what I wanted to use was a 6x6 round plate to click on top and hold the whole lot together. However, Lego don't make this in red, unfortunately, so I'm having to use 2 3x6 round plates. So we're only going to be able to actually hold the 2 halves together, that being one half and this being the other half. And again, it's an incredibly fragile build. Hopefully once everything's together it'll be more substantial, like that. Now in a minute we are going to stick a 2x2 plate in the middle, but right now there's nothing for it to stick to, so we can't do that at the moment. But what we are going to do is in this corner we're going to stick a 1x1 quarter circle tile like that, and then in this corner we're going to stick a 1x1 round plate to give us another stud, and that's the start of our anti-stud to go on the bottom of the door. And after a week, a weird Lego mystery has been solved. For this next layer I need a 2x3 red tile. I've just got the pocket of 2x3 red tiles, and sure enough in there are the 8 1x6s that I couldn't find in the last video, and they were meant to be going around the door handle. So now, after last week's video, we can take off those 1x8s and the 1x2 at the end of the door handle. Maybe I can't use my fingernail for that one. I'm going to have to resort to it. Oh no, managed to get it. Then we're going to put a 2x4 as originally designed, and then the 2 1x6s down the sides of the door handle. This is so big it's difficult to keep it in frame. There you go. So that's how the door handle was meant to be designed and was meant to be built in the last week's video. So our next layer, we're going to start smoothing this off, and I am fully expecting I'm going to have to slightly adjust my design because I've never put this together obviously in real life before, but hopefully my original plan will work. We've got a 3x3 curved tile in that corner, and then a 2x2 curved tile, and then this is where we're going to need that 2x2 plate in a minute. And then on this corner we've got a 2x3 tile and a 1x3 tile underneath it. And now I'm wondering why on earth I did that. Oh, to keep the corner square, I suppose, but I could have used another plate. It doesn't really matter. I could have used a round 1x1, but obviously decided to use that to keep it more square in that corner. whereas I needed a stud in this one, and I didn't want so I could have made, I can't use a square on there because it'll encroach on the tile, that's what the plate. So that's why I did a 1x1 round plate here, because obviously I need a stud, whereas I don't need a stud in that corner, which is why I used the quarter circle tile. Right, such a long time ago that I designed this, I can't remember my reasoning for doing things. And then on the bottom half, these two parts are still not being held together. We've got a 1x3 tile, and then on the other side a 2x2 curved macaroni tile, and then on this corner we've got a bracket piece, so it's 1x2 at the bottom, we've got a 1x2 sticking up, and that's going to go there, and that's going to click onto the back of the door. And then to give it some more strength, we've got a 2x2 with a 1x2 sticking up, and that goes there, and then we are going to need a 1x2 plate above that to click onto the door. So we've still got our two halves. Let's get a 2x2 plate and join those two together. So it looks like, for my design, I can't remember, it's such a long time ago, this piece is the only piece holding the whole thing together, so that's going to be quite a fragile connection. Got that there, and then we're going to put two 1x1 quarter circle tiles in there and in there. Yeah, that is very fragile. I don't hold out much hope for this, but let's see how it goes. And then on the corner, we're going to put another one of our bricks. And I think with one more brick, I think then it should be able to click onto the back of the door. So do like that. Right, let me just change camera angle. And just holding these two pieces up against each other, no, clearly I need another 1x2 brick and another curved brick in the corner there before I can add that on. I can definitely add the curved brick on, but I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to add that 1x2 brick in there without dismantling the bottom piece. No, definitely not. Right, so let's try and take some of this off. If we just flex that back, hopefully we can squeeze that brick in, and we can. And let that come back forwards. Oh, this stuff is not quite in place. It's not like that. There we go. And then put the tile back on in front. And there we go, we've got a nice smooth area. And then if we click this on, I'm actually going to separate these two halves temporarily, like that. Yeah, this is exceptionally fragile. I don't hold out huge hopes for this holding together, trying to open and shut it as an actual door. So those two brackets are going to go on the bottom of that. We may need to, oh no, that's gone on. So those bricks have gone on, that's gone on. Well, actually that's fairly firm. It's just whether that second half of the anti-stud will hold firm underneath when we're opening and closing the door. It looks good, but it's not very strong. Now I have just thought, we have got those two plates going this way. If I put them out this way, the door would hold at least this end of the two semicircular plates together. So instead of having, if I can take this piece off, those two semicircular plates and the two halves being this direction, if I have one coming out here and one coming out there, that may make it slightly more stronger. So I'm just going to disassemble this and reassemble it with those two plates the other way around. So I've reassembled it now so the two parts come apart in that direction. So this is still as fragile as it was, but I'm hoping when I click that back on, it's going to give it a little bit of extra strength compared to how it was. Click all that together. Actually, that is a bit firmer. It's still not perfect. It flexes at this end ever so slightly, but it's a lot better than it was. And just for a quick initial test, we know that that is 4x4 and it should sit on a 4x4. So if we put it on this plate like that, well, it turns and it clears the studs in front of it. So initial test over. We just got to see if it holds up in the actual build. But I've just noticed, yes, for initial test, that does seem to work. However, what I noticed was, if you hold it from this angle and turn it, the square corner of that anti-stud down there hits this stud here. And if I zoom in, you can see the problem. That brick on the corner there does collide with the stud, and it doesn't allow the door to open very much at all. So mid-video, obviously don't have time to fix this. What we can do is remove that stud, and then look, it opens beautifully. But I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board for part of this at least. But after saying that, actually, I don't think this is going to be that much of a redesign as I thought it was. I think I'm just being well over dramatic. If I remove this 1x2 brick and this 1x3 brick, we can just replace that with a 3x3 round brick. The only problem is, like I said at the beginning, we have 3 different versions of this door. If we have a curved corner on this side, we're meant to have an open top to the stud, which might help us in the future, but that's something to look into. But at least for now, that will allow us to open and shut the door without it colliding with the other upscale stud. And you can see, yes, we can now open that a full 90 degrees and it's not going to collide with that stud at all. So it fixes our problem initially. Doesn't look the best. We've got a square corner on the plate, but obviously a round corner on the bricks. But yes, maybe something to develop in the future, but at least for now it works. I do actually quite like it when I get problems like this as we go along while we're filming. I have now noticed that that bracket piece here, with the 1x2 up in the air and the 1x2 sticking down, is now actually not clicked onto anything because there's no stud below it. So what I think I will do is swap those 2 brackets around, so at least the 1x2 will be being held on over here and have one connection point, and then this one will be over here holding on with another connection point. And once that anti-stud's been removed, it's dead easy just to pull off those 2 brackets and swap them over, so the 1x2 that way and the 1x2 that way. We also need to put a 1x2 plate in to fill that gap, and with one of those in place like that, we can just reattach it to the anti-stud below, hopefully. Yes, we can. And hopefully that'll give us an extra strong, slightly stronger joint between the anti-stud and the door. And we're still not moving on. This may actually be a good argument for covering the back of the door in inverted tiles, because if I just add 2 of those 2x2 inverted tiles, that strengthens that whole thing up greatly. We're locking those brackets onto the rest of the door, so that may be worth the 20 odd pounds to cover this door with inverted tiles. I'm going to keep those 2 on there for now just to see how it goes. But just before we continue, a very quick shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for your support. It really does help out the channel. And if anyone else would like to become a channel member and get their name on a brick in my videos, you can click on the join button below or the link in the description and that'll tell you how. Or alternatively, if you ever buy anything from lego.com, you can use my affiliate link in the description below. It doesn't cost you anything, but Lego give me a small commission on everything people buy. But let's carry on with the red door. Right, let's finally get on and build that stud on top of the door after all those amendments on the bottom anti-stud. So first of all, we need to stick 4 1x2s on here, and now you can see why I wanted another one of those to hold this together, but there just wasn't enough space. And then we've got 4 of the 3x3 curved bricks, and then we can start working on the anti-stud. We're going to build that on the desk and then we're going to add it on afterwards. And as there's not much space on my build desk, I've just built a temporary little yellow stand, so at least the door could be standing up in the background while we're building its stud. So finally, that stud to go on the top of the door, and this is going to be a little bit of a mishmash. What we're doing, we've got a 3x3 curved plate to go in the corner with a 3x3 square plate. Now this isn't actually the correct curve, as it's only a 2x2 curve in the corner there rather than a 3x3. You can see the difference between those 2 pieces, but it's a slight cheat just so I can get a little bit of extra strength to hold the door together. Then we've got a 1x4 going underneath it and a 1x3 underneath that, and then underneath that we're going to have a 1x3 brick and our 3x3 curved brick. Then we're going to start drawing out all that together. We're using our 3x6 curves, and there you can see that the 2 curves are ever so slightly different. And then we're going to join these pieces at the bottom in the same way. 1x4, 1x3, 1x3 brick and the curved brick, like that. And then we can join those together with a 2x2 plate, like that. And this one is going to be a lot stronger than the bottom joint, as he says, as a bit falls off it, because we've actually got that 2x2 plate going across both of the halves with 2 studs on each half. So hopefully this is going to be stronger. And instantly I found another problem with my design from Bricklink Studio. I'm putting a 1x1 quarter circle tile in the corner, and Bricklink Studio would let me put a 2x2 quarter circle macaroni tile there, but there's absolutely no studs for it to attach to, so that is just going to sit floating there. We may have to redo that, do without it, or redesign this piece again. This is why it's quite fun only ever building it in Bricklink and never building it in real bricks until I get to the video stage. So we're going to have to leave that piece out for now. and we're going to carry on tiling off the rest. So we're going to add a 2x4 over this side, and then a 1x2 underneath it, and then a 3x3, a 2x2, and then in the middle we are needing some studs to attach to our upscale stud to. So we're going to put a 2x2 round plate, and then thankfully something else joining the two halves together, a 2x4 tile, and then a 1x2. And then finally on top we're adding our upscale stud like that, which our brick can happily sit on top of. It's a little bit of a shame that that piece can't sit there, and it's a shame that Bricklink Studio let me sit that there quite happily when there were no studs actually holding it in place, and I didn't even think to check. But there you go, we'll have to do without it for now. Let's going to attach this to the top of the door. And yet more fiddling around. I've now swapped that 3x3 plate which was here, the 1x4 was along here and a 1x3 below, and I've put two 2x3s and a 1x4, and we've got more crossing points over the two halves of the circle plate layer, so that's now a lot more sturdy than it was just now. Still sad about that corner though. Finally the moment comes, we're going to attach this to the top of here, and it's all so fragile. This is probably the most sketchy upscale build I have ever done in my life. There you go, so that is now attached, and we do have our stud on top. However, that whole piece is way too flimsy, and something's got to be done about that. Well, I have to apologise. If this is the first video of mine you have ever watched, you must think that I'm completely disorganised. But normally my videos go quite differently to this. But I have just thought, I was going to take this inside, but just as I was packing up to go and take all the parts with me, I did think we had all that mechanism here to make sure that these couldn't come apart. If I added a clip up here, I wouldn't have to ensure that it couldn't come apart. It'd just be an extra piece holding the whole thing together. You can see that it just falls apart in my hand as I touch it. So if we had a clip and a bar up here, if I can take off these tiles and see if there's a connection point I can use and modify this tower, at least that would be being it'll be being held to the rest of the door. It could still come apart, but obviously we need to give it a bit of a tug. The rest of the door couldn't come apart, but at least it's better than nothing, and at the moment with it just flapping around like this. Now if I take 4 of those 1x2s out, we've got plenty of space to add in a 1x1 brick with a clip. We just need to see what's underneath these tiles. Let's remove that temporarily, get rid of that 2x6, and underneath we've got two, what's that one? Oh, it's a 1x6. Right, let's see if we can get a plate with a bar clipped onto there. We need a 1x4 plate. Hold on 1 second. And that's why I ordered so many extra pieces. I've got loads of 1x4 plates, so we can pop one of those in there and reinstate that 2x6 tile on top. Now we need to work out if we've got that up there. Let's get one of our 1x1 bricks with the clip on it, and clip that on. And if we've got that 1x3 that needs to sit on top of that, if we put a 1x1 plate on top of that one, and then attach it to that 1x3, that should, yeah, that's going to hold it over there at least. And then our usual technique, let's put one of those 1x2s underneath it, if it'll go on like that. Oh, actually we need another 1x1 plate in there first. Let me find a 1x1 plate, and I've got one of those, so we can pop that off and add the 1x1 to the bottom of it. And then we're going to have to take that piece off because obviously you can't clip and push at the same time. That clips, and then that pushes on. So I'm not entirely sure why I didn't do one of these earlier. Why I didn't keep, because there wasn't enough space for the plate above, whereas the brick would do just as well. Again, this is why building in Bricklink Studio isn't always perfect compared to building with real parts. Right, we need to try and fit all this in here somehow. So we got 3 bricks. Got to try. Oh no, not 3 bricks. 2 bricks. It's going to be 2 bricks and 2 plates. As long as I've got some 1x1 plates somewhere, 1x2 plates somewhere. Right, off to find more pieces. And yes, I've got 2 1x2 plates left, thankfully. but I think we are going to have to take some of this apart to get it all together. So we've got those 2 bricks, we can add 2 1x1 plates, and then we're going to have the 1x2 plates, sorry, 1x2 plates, then the 1x2 round plate for that to click into like that, and then that plate can click onto the door, although that is still being pulled apart. This is obviously not the right spacing. Let me count my plates, as we may, I think, need to adjust the position of that one. Yes, and of course I didn't need to pause for very long at all. You can see we've got a plate, then a 2-gap plate, 2-gap. We've actually got a 4-gap here, so that plate is going to have to sit here, not there. It would have been nice if it had been right at the top to hold the top of it in, but here will be virtually as good. It's going to hold most of it in. Ideally, we could click it here, but then we've got all that gubbins of the upscale stud to fit up there. So let's move it down to studs and see how that works. So I've moved that bar plate down 2 studs. I've run out of regular 1x2 plates, so I've had to use the 1x2 round ones, but I can cover those up with the 2x6 tile, and you won't see those once the column is reinstated. But at least we've now got a connection point higher up. We just need to now try and rebuild this huge column of bricks and pieces. Now with the regular size version, it's the simplest of things to do, to just put the red door in place and it stands there quite happily, and you can open it and close it. So in the regular size, we're going to put an extra 1x2. We've dismantled this end of the build, 1x1, which I also took from the other end, and then a 1x6 from the other end. And that sits on there, and then the door happily opens and closes. We're going to do the same thing on the upscale version. So first of all, we're going to borrow some pieces from the other end. We're going to take off that 1x1, that 1x6, and that 1x2. And then at this end, we're going to add the 1x1 on this side, the 1x2 on that side. And just to show what's going to happen, the 1x6 is going to go across the top. We're going to try and put the door in the middle. And so here we go. And I have never been so nervous about a build before. So that sits in there. And straight away, it doesn't fit. Let's put the 1x6 on top. How have I miscalculated that so that it doesn't fit? Something's gone horribly wrong. Hold on one moment, viewers. I literally can't believe this. I built my door 25 studs wide. How did that happen, viewers? This is a 24 stud gap wide. We've got 4 upscale studs. We'll build it 6:1. 4 times 6 is 24. This is 25 studs wide. Not entirely sure how that happened, but we can't fit it in as we have it at the moment. You'll have to excuse the hysterical laughing, because if I don't laugh I am going to cry bitterly. We've also got another problem on the inside, the same problem as we had on the outside, because we've got a square corner on that stud. When we start opening it, that stud hits, not the stud, the corner of the anti-stud on the door hits this stud on the door, so we've got to curve that off as well. Like I said, we just need some 6x6 round plates in red and so many of our problems would be solved, but we don't have any. But if we do remove that, we can see that the door does open and shut beautifully, and that square stops it from opening in anymore. However, as you can see down here, and you can't see down here, I'll move the camera, as you can see down here, zoom in, this is actually sticking over by 1 brick into this stud. The door is 25 studs wide. I don't know how that happened. Well, this is the first disastrous video I've made, I think, in the history of the channel. My secondary school maths teacher would definitely be saying could do better if they were marking this work. Not entirely sure how we're going to finish this video now. And this is how we're going to finish off the video. We're going to completely adjust the base plate so it fits. If we take off this stud and then we pull up that 2x2 modified plate and turn it round like that, and then if we move that upscale stud over slightly to there we go. Now that is now 25 studs wide. So we've got a gap of 25 studs. We can put our red door in like that, and we can lock it down with our 1x6 on the top like that. No, we can't, because that stud won't reach. Another adjustment needs to be made. We're going to have to move this stud over one, so we're just going to do that for now. Well, the door, which is the wrong size, is in the hole with some extra bricks which aren't meant to be there, which have all been adjusted to fit the wrong size door. Yes, it's in and it works. We can open this up. We're missing a stud on the inside because the door will foul up on it. But it does open and close. So from a disastrous video, it's quite satisfying that this door actually works. It does stop when it gets to 90 degrees, which is nice, and it stops when it gets to its shut position, but that's all changed when we have to adjust on the inside. If anyone can think of a piece that would fit in here and help join these two together, please remember the orientation. The studs on these bricks here are pointing up and the studs on these plates are pointing out. So we need something to try and hold this all together, because this is the incredibly fragile corner. So while I go off and find a nice dark room and have a quiet lie down, please let me know what you think in the comments below, and please try and be nice. If you've liked this video, disastrous as it was, please give it a thumbs up because it helps me out the YouTube algorithm. If you'd like to help support the channel, and I really like you to, as I'm going to need to buy a lot more red bricks, you could always consider becoming a channel member and getting your name on a brick in all my videos. Or if you're buying anything from lego.com, please use my affiliate link, as Lego give me a small commission on everything people buy. But above everything else, please make sure you subscribe so you can come back and see how I fix this disastrous door and watch some more Lego videos.